YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, once again under the guise of Morbo. Got me a Dwarf army going up against the Greenskins, led by Grimgor Ironhide, under the command of Emilio there. So I've got 4 gyrocopters, and part of the reason I've done this is because the only flying unit that the Greenskins can bring is Azag, and he probably would still be trouble for 4 gyrocopters because of Fate of Buna. He couldn't catch the gyrocopters, but he could probably get a Fate of Buna off, which essentially kills a gyrocopter every time he cast it. The good news is that him using his mana on the gyrocopters would prevent my lord from dying, which would actually give me a much better chance of winning the battle. So one way or the other, the gyrocopters were a good pick. The goblins and orcs don't really have a great answer to the gyrocopters. They have a few tools that can help out, but they don't have a great answer to it. I think Fate of Buna, I don't know if magic missiles from a Night Goblin Shaman or something would work well. It might. I'd have to try that. I mean, so again, it's not like they don't have answers, but like I said, they're more limited. Here's Mr. Grimgor here. Mr. I'm too fat for any type of mount, and I always go on foot. And I don't even wear a helmet into battle, because my skull is so thick, apparently. Yeah. I saw here that I was marching uphill, though the gradient really isn't that bad. But here in a minute will go ahead and pull my men back. I've got dwarf warriors with great weapons and miners in the center. I wanted a lot of armor piercing in case the dwarfs went heavy on black orcs. And my strategy is pretty straightforward. I have very cheap infantry by way of just dwarf warriors. But I'm going to support them with a Thane on each flank, Ungrim Iron Fist in the center, and then 2 miners with blasting charges. I'm going to slow down the dwarf charge into their infantry with my heroes, and then follow up with my own infantry, hopefully robbing the orcs of their charge, which is a huge boost to the orcs. While my gyrocopters are hopefully out running a distraction game, and they are doing pretty good. My opponent brought 5 Savage Orc Error Boys, which I think was a big mistake. When you're playing as the orcs, don't try and out-skirmish the dwarves. Just don't. My gyrocopters there caught a bunch of these Savage Orc Error Boys blobbed up and bombed them, and actually had some pretty good results out of the bombing. You can see we took a number of hit points off of these units, so it really wasn't that bad at all. 18 kills already on that gyrocopter. So, I mean, I don't use the bombs super often from the gyrocopters, but that blob was just a little bit too tasty. I couldn't pass it up. My opponent does have a troll and a giant. His main line is biggins. I don't think biggins are probably the best choice versus dwarfs, because dwarfs don't have anything that counts as large, and biggins have a bonus versus large. I think savage orcs are going to be a much better pick, and then combine those with black orcs. So you can go with the combo of savage orcs and black orcs. Black orcs are going to be your mainstay, and then savage orcs will be your damage dealer and your quicker moving outflanking units. A giant against the dwarves is usually very risky because of artillery and missiles, so I would say that was probably not a smart choice for the Greenskins. So let's watch how this plays out. The Greenskin player is going to come at me. He has to, because my gyrocopters will harass him to no end if he doesn't. You can see the giant already just eating copious amounts of fire from my quarrelers, and it is going to render him fairly useless on the battlefield, even with just 2 units of quarrelers. And now you're going to see my plan come into effect. Here comes the blasting charges. So this is going to slow up the biggins and cause a little bit of damage to him. It should give me the intended effect. So you can see the main lines for the orcs definitely getting slowed. This is going to allow my infantry to charge while they're somewhat discombobulated. And then my Thane is going to come in first, again breaking the charge of the biggins, allowing my other units to engage successfully. The orcs get charged over here, and then the giant continues to eat fire, and then immediately, while his error boys are still distracted in the backfield, my gyrocopters come up and immediately start laying withering fire into the rear of the orcs, working on their leadership. Grimgor has yet to engage. The giant drops. This is good for me. There's some more blasting charges coming in point blank. Gyrocopters move on out because the Savage Orc Error Boys are coming in. And I'm going to go out here on the flank. I just need to hold up his black orcs. So that's my goal, is just to keep the black orcs from being able to join the main infantry fight for long enough for me to wrap it up. So I'm going to sacrifice a unit of dwarf warriors, which will do poorly versus black orcs, but it will hold them for a long time. My Thane has been fighting all alone in here, but doing pretty good. I'm going to reinforce him. And over here you can see my main line pushing out some of the dwarves. And Ungrim Iron Fist was getting absolutely crushed by Grimgor, so I'm going to slide him out and bring a lot of infantry units in to bog down Ironhide. Out here again, more Dwarf Warriors, just keeping a Black Orc out of the fight, which ends up being worth it. So Ungrim Iron Fist doing the very Slayer King-like thing and fleeing from before Greenskins, which I'm sure they do all the time. Pretty much standard procedure. So my Thane with the combination of infantry here will be able to get a lot of work done versus Grimgor. And Grimgor is going to try and get to another fight. We're going to chase him. And again, you can see my Gyrocopters just absolutely parked up here, unleashing fury into the Greenskins. And my Quarrelers, because there's no Boar Boys on the field, are going to go like absolutely ham on the Greenskins. You can see them firing away here. And then there's going to be a regrouped... no, not yet. Yeah, they're just going to go ham on the Savage Orc Air Boys. So, definitely need to bring... And I'll talk about this. The Greenskins should have the advantage over the Dwarfs in almost every way. What really helped me here, because this still would have been a very difficult battle, is if my opponent would have brought Boar Boys. And I see a lot of times... Not all the time, but I see a lot of times Greenskin armies being brought without Boar Boys, and I'm not really sure why. They are a very good cavalry unit against infantry, and they're also the right version of them is quite good against other cavalry. It's not like the greatest cav in the game. It's going to lose to Blood Knights. It's going to lose to Demigryphs, but against a faction like the Dwarves, you have absolutely nothing to lose. It just gives you mobility. You can crunch through enemy lines, and it gives you the ability to push on into skirmishers and other units that you can't afford to leave to the end game. If my opponent had brought Boar Boys, this might be different in the sense that he could have gotten to my Quarrelers, and then his archers could have focused on my Gyrocopters, but my Gyrocopters have been roaming at will. You can see them going to haul up right behind his archers once again and open fire on them at, again, basically point-blank range. So his Savage Orc Air Boys are firing back, but they're not going to be able to do enough damage quickly enough at this point. And my Quarrelers, I believe, for the most part, have still been firing at these Savage Orc Air Boys. So even with them firing back, they're just not causing a lot of damage to the Gyrocopters. In this main fight here, you can see Grimgor getting axed in the back by my Thane, as he is chased away from combat, and this is going to cause the Orc force to begin to break apart. Some of their Black Orcs were still alive. Again, very tough infantry unit, very good infantry unit. In my mind, one of the best for the price infantry units in the game. One of the best, not the best. I mean, it could be, but it's certainly amongst the top. But, so again, not something you're going to see often here with the Dwarves pulling off the victory versus the Greenskins. There was a couple of key mispicks here in my mind, and it would be the Savage Orc Air Boys and the Giant. I'm even okay with Trolls as long as they get used the right way versus the Dwarves. Let's go talk about a few of the things that make the Greenskins dangerous for the Dwarves. Well, I mean, pretty much every faction just existing makes them dangerous against the Dwarves, but so the Dwarfs have their offerings, and we all know what they are. They're very defensive. They've really got no offensive power. They rely on very static formations, and one thing that works well against static formation is breaking them with cavalry, and the Orcs have some good cheap options to do this. You have these Orc Boar Boys. Since you don't have to worry about enemy cavalry being on the field, you can go very cheap. You don't even need the, or you could get the Savage Boar Boys, but I would just stick with the Orc Boar Boys. Again, cheap cavalry. They get around quicker. They're not fast for cavalry. They're actually pretty slow for cavalry, but they have a lot of mass. And that 40 charge bonus and their mass, they can bust through a Dwarf backline and get to the squishy, juicy, stunty skirmishers within. And it allows them to do a lot of damage. So, I mean, if I were going to be playing against the Dwarves, I'm certainly okay with the pick of Grimgor as the general. I mean, why not? He can one-on-one any of the Dwarf Lords, no problem, and any of their heroes, and the Dwarves don't have a great way to kill Grimgor. I mean, they could chase you around with Gyrocopters, but if you brought Azag, he would be just as susceptible to Gyrocopter fire, and if you put him on his mount, He could melee out the gyrocopters, but you can't catch them. You could also use Fate of Buna. Not a bad plan, so that would be acceptable as well. But I think I would just go with Grimgore like this. I'd probably throw in a Night Goblin Shaman just because these guys can pay dividends. And then, I mean, the Savage Orc era boys, just no. In fact, I wouldn't bring any skirmishers whatsoever, because it's almost certain the dwarves are going to bring skirmishers, and they're almost certainly going to out-skirmish you. If you wanted to, you could bring like a Doomdiver catapult. One of them would be able to do a lot of damage to key units of the dwarves, so we'll throw that in and act like that's what we wanted to bring. I would definitely bring 4 boar boys. And then in terms of infantry, just think cheap. I mean, the dwarf infantry is very defensive. It's not going to be very good. They don't have anything that has a bonus versus large except for slayers, so there's really not a whole lot they have that's going to do good against your cavalry, so don't go too crazy here. I think combo Savage Orcs, get you a couple of Black Orcs, like 3 of them should be good, and then you've got yourself a little bit of money left here to deal with at the end. You could throw in like a couple more Orc boys just to help serve as outflanking contingents. Already you're going to have a lot of men, and your army's going to be pretty quick. You've always got the option to ditch the Doomdiver catapult, and go with a couple more Orc boys. So then this army, just tons of infantry, plenty of mobility. The hitting power of the Black Orcs and these Savage Orcs is enough to jack up a Dwarf main line while you work to outflank with the Orc boys. And the Night Goblin Shaman can give some great buffs to your infantry, ensuring that they just eat right through the Dwarves, while Grimgore can take care of any other threats. So I definitely think that, like I said, it was an oddball occurrence for me to win with the Dwarves. It required my opponent to make some choice mistakes, but just wanted to talk through this with you all. I do like matching up Dwarf against Greenskin. It's fun, even when I lose. But I mean, just be aware that the Greenskins definitely hold the high cards here, in my opinion. Tell me what you think in the comments. HeirofCarthage, signing out for now.